3 now this morning. We now present For the Record with Neil Heinen.
The first of our conversations with the candidates for mayor of Madison is next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. Next week, we will talk with challenger Satya Rhodes Conway. But today, I welcome to For the Record the incumbent, Madison Mayor Paul Soglin.
Thank you, Neil.
Nice to see you, Paul.
Good to be back.
So I'm going to ask you in a minute why you should be re-elected mayor, but let's start with why you want to be re-elected mayor again.
You know, it's real interesting. Satya is saying, you know, and I'm almost quoting her exactly, let's make history, elect me as the first lesbian mayor of the city of Madison. I'm saying, you the people, we will make history by doing some really great, wonderful things and continuing with the work that has been so outstanding, that has been nationally recognized, the innovation, the creativity. The mayor listens and leads and then is responsible for implementing.
So, I mean, you want to finish what you've started? You want to implement new ideas?
Well, let's just start with the Brookings Institution. The Brookings Institution recently analyzed 100 major U.S. cities, the largest, came to the conclusion that there were 11 cities that had done an outstanding job in not only improving their economy, but also making it equitable and involving all races and ethnic groups. Madison's one of the 11. We have made some significant changes in our partnerships with the private sector, our partnerships with other governments, and we've taken some dramatic, very successful steps. I'd like to see it through and see this stuff truly institutionalized in city government so we don't lose our way again.
Yeah. The Brookings stuff is interesting. I mean, when you think over 40 years, the city has changed so dramatically. And so we've gotten used to our ratings of all of the positive pub that we've gotten. So we are really at the point where other cities have gotten, where this balance and this fear of gentrification is very real for us.
It is very real, and we've got some plans to implement changes without all of these really negative consequences. You know, Richard Harris, Dr. Harris recently published his book, pointed out what happened in the triangle, and it was more than just what happened to that triangle. It's what happened, for example, to the African-American community in terms of disrupting entrepreneurship, in terms of breaking the ability to pass on intergenerational wealth, which comes with owning one's own business. That has had an impact to the city 50 years, 60 years later to today.
Right. So imagine Madison asks a lot of these questions. I mean, you're so familiar with this, but it keeps coming up over and over again. Housing and transportation. Well, if we're not going to force people out of our city and be exclusive instead of inclusive.
All right, so what happened in terms of housing? We were dead in the water in terms of housing. We had wasted $6 million over those previous 8 years. When I came into office, we had the worst vacancy rate in the United States. I've moved it from 1 3/4, 2%, up to 3%. That may not sound like a lot, but that's a 50% improvement. And what did we accomplish in the meantime? We housed over 150 chronically homeless veterans. We set a goal of 1,000 units. Last I heard, we were approaching 1,300 with those that are under construction and approved. We've housed all those families and individuals. We really did something that very few cities in the United States have done in the last decade in terms of the housing challenge. We are providing affordable housing. I don't know why you'd fire the mayor who has made these dramatic changes, and it was things that I implemented. It was the financing plans, and we've got more going in that direction.
How much more do we need? I mean, really, to get
12,000 units.
Yeah.
12,000 units.
In the next
decade.
Okay.
Given the growth of the city and given the demand, and there's things that are going on. We are engaged now with the private sector to put more private money. I'm in conversations on entrepreneurship and housing right now with local banks and financial institutions, and pointing out their responsibility to the Community Reinvestment Act, to provide us with really low-interest loans and expand our capacity to do this.
Can we build 12,000?
Yes, we can.
We got the land, we've got the zoning, we've got the...
We've got to make sure we don't have too much NIMBYism. I mean, this has been Madison's challenge for forever.
Yep.
We don't want to consume valuable farmland and see urban sprawl. We don't want the environmental costs of that, the greenhouse gases that are associated with all those commuters and everything. We know compact development, commercial, interspersed with retail and housing, is efficient. It's the way to do it. It gets our costs down, and it's environmentally smart. That's what we've been doing, but every once in a while, you know, we'll get a development. People won't like the disruption to the neighborhood, and suddenly we either don't do the development or we cut it down from, say, 300 units to 200 units. But the point is, under my leadership, we've tackled these problems, we've made tremendous advancements, and we're continuing to go forward.
You know, I don't think this gets appreciated a lot, but, you know, Kevin in Exact Sciences, you know, is building right in the middle, right, where there's a lot of low-income, affordable housing. Oscar Mayer would seem to be the next...
All right, so let's talk about what Exact Sciences did there. They took an old, dilapidated site, frontage on the Beltline, but completely surrounded by one of the lowest income census tracts in the city of Madison. And we did something very novel there. We said, yes, we'll provide you with a TIF and get these hundreds and hundreds of new jobs, but you got to do a couple of things with us. First, you got to sign a contract with the Urban League, which they did, and we've already had 3 successful classes come through there of neighborhood residents because we wanted local people in walking distance hired, and $15 an hour minimum starting for all employees, health insurance, and a pension. We went to Oscar Mayer. We had to act quickly because Oscar Mayer had made the announcement it was closing and it was going to sell the site. So I took a position. I wanted Oscar Mayer to know this in terms of who they sold it to. I wanted to know any potential buyer. This is a site for quality jobs. Do not expect to turn this into a big box store with low wages. Do not expect this to turn this into a warehouse. This has got to be productive jobs. Housing? Yes, we'll get housing on part of, I mean, it's a large, immense site. We'll get housing there, but the jobs, the quality jobs have to come first. We set those parameters, and yet it was not an impediment. The Reich brothers came in, their company bought the property, and they did it acknowledging what our standard was.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about how people get around in this city and food. We'll do that with Mayor Paul Soglin right after this.
Supreme Court candidates debate Sunday night at 10:35 on News 3 Now.
It seems like with life, there's never a dull moment. And when it comes to sleep, we don't always get the best rest. Find the cozy comfort, quality, and affordability of the Aspen Collection, all packed in a convenient box, exclusively at Denver Mattress.
5,000 years of Chinese music and dance in one night. Beautiful, a nimble mastery. An explosion of color and sound. Experience Shen Yun. Coming to Overture Center for the Arts, May 7th and 8th. Tickets at shenyun.com/Madison or call 800-800-4410.
Rocket Drive Block? Russia Soul Crush? Jam a Grand Slam? Drunk? Drunk? That'd be insane! Rolling that? Rolling this? Roll together? Drunk? That would be super insane. Hey, all you ladies and guys, drive sober on the road, no matter how many wheels you roll.
Presence is listening. presence is comforting. It's about being in the moment and making that moment count. At SSM Health, we believe in the healing power of presence, which means we listen and learn about you, because knowing you better as a person helps us treat you better as a patient. SSM Health.
It seems like with life, there's never a dull moment. And when it comes to sleep, we don't always get the best rest. Find the cozy comfort, quality, and affordability of the Aspen Collection, all packed in a convenient box, exclusively at Denver Mattress.
My guest is Madison Mayor Paul Soglin. In anticipation of the election coming up next week, we will have challenger Satya Rhodes Conway on. But talking with Paul Soglin about the issues facing the city, and again, in all of these conversations with citizens about quality of life here, Paul, in addition to housing, transportation is so crucial.
Yes, it is.
And given the limitations of the isthmus, all those things that we know, it still seems like we're not talking enough about the future.
Let me just point one thing out.
Like.
This is ancient history, and I wouldn't expect anybody to make a mayor's decision on the mayor's race based on this. Madison at one point was supposed to have a highway going through the isthmus, running out Gorham and over towards Regent Street and College Court. And I'm very proud of the fact that in my early days I was part of the city council that stopped that. There's virtually no city in the U.S. of our size that has the benefit of no highway coming through the center of town. That said, one of the things that we've worked on, and we're one of the best in the U.S., is bus transit, bus ridership. We've built a magnificent system, but we now have to take it to the next level. And let me just mention a few of the things that we're working on. First, we want to go to the concept of bus rapid transit. That was first introduced to Madison around 2010, 2011, when the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, took an initial short, quick study of it. We picked it up in my administration and said, yes, this is the future. Rail would be nice. We'd love the idea of rail. Too expensive for our density and our population. But a bus system that operates with the concept of rail, with stations, with the ability to walk in and out without a fare box and all that. That's what we need. Make it electric, and we're going to go to all electric fleet.
You take your bike on it?
The ability, yes, definitely be able to put bicycles on it, not have to straddle them on the front outside. Right. And I've seen similar systems in other cities. So redoing the routes. The routes right now are very efficient for high employment neighborhoods to high employment centers. Why? Because that's how you get the most riders. But it's not fair if you're in a low-income neighborhood with not a lot of employment. So we're going to have to make some adjustments so we get more equity in terms of the service. We've already made those changes in two instances, Owl Creek and Route 80 running along the South Belt Line. We're doing more of that. But the big stumbling block is the hundreds of millions of dollars it's going to cost to implement. It's buying the rolling stock, it's buying the technology equipment and the redesign of streets to make the system work, and something as unromantic as the garages that are needed for the fleet.
And a regional transit authority would help with that.
There's two ways of helping. One is a regional transit authority, and the other is federal funding. We have been very aggressive on our applications to the federal government. They approve less than 8% of all the applications that come in, and we're sort of like in a queue every year, and I am confident one of these years we're going to get our federal grant, and it will probably start with the garages and then adding to that the fleet. The other thing is to work from an environmental standpoint to reduce the carbon gas emissions. We need a regional system. We have to deal with what's referred to as last and first mile, as well as what happens in the evenings. It may not be in those circumstances the wisest thing to do to run these big, large buses. And so we're also looking as part of the system as some GPS-driven, think of them as shuttle vans, running a circuit and bringing you, if you're beyond the last stop, or if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and it's not efficient to run a large bus, utilizing them. All of this is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and the best way of sustaining it in terms of operations is a regional transit authority with a half-cent sales tax as the source of revenue. And I am convinced, we've done the math, it works from a cost standpoint, it works for a transportation standpoint. My opponent is criticizing me for not being as enthusiastic as she is. She's saying we're going to do it whether or not we get the federal grants, whether or not we get a RTA. I'm sorry. I've been at this. I'm being responsible. I'd love to do a feel-good statement about this, but what are you going to cut? What taxes are you going to raise to get these hundreds of millions of dollars?
Do you see anything going on at the Capitol right now that would cause you to believe that there's a better likelihood of an RTA?
People laugh and mock when I say this because he's been such a difficult person to work with over the years in this regard, and that's Robin Vos. Right. But over the last 8 years, Robin Vos have had these conversations, and when he gets going, he starts speculating as to how, if we were to have an RTA, it might work. That comes only from somebody who thinks it is a possibility. He's been under the pressure of responding to the Walker administration in the last 8 years, so he was never really given the freedom. And I really believe that if the Evers administration, a coalition of Wisconsin cities that want an RTA, they want it up in the Fox River Valley, they want it in Appleton. If anything's going to happen with Foxconn, it's going to be needed in the Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee area. We need it here. And so we want to continue the conversations with him. We're hoping that the Evers administration will take a leadership role and we can get that RTA.
Before we talk about food and public safety, let's take our last break, and we'll be back with Madison Mayor Paul Soglin right after this.
For 2 decades, News 3 Now and Channel 3000 have paid tribute to top-notch teachers nominated by our viewers. Every month, we spotlight and salute an area teacher, and we want to hear about your favorite. If you know a teacher who deserves to be recognized as a top-notch teacher, send us a letter, an email, or nominate a teacher at channel3000.com.
Top-notch teachers, sponsored by Lazy Boy Home Furnishings and Decor.
I'm Gary Canulti, inviting News 3 Now viewers to join me on a fabulous tour to Normandy, London, and Paris, October 7th through the 17th. Visit Windsor Castle and Churchill's War Rooms in London before crossing the English Channel. We'll pay our respects in Normandy at Omaha and Utah Beach, visit Monet's iconic gardens, and experience a Seine River cruise and a city tour in Paris. Our tour includes all airfare, deluxe hotels, and more. Call Holiday Vacations at 1-800-826-2266.
No, that won't work. I need contacts. No, that's very important. Nope. I have to take my cat to the masseuse.
Skip the appointment. Renew your contacts prescription for free with 1-800-CONTACTS.
Elevate your next adventure in your new Jeep from Don Miller. Just announced a $500 rebate on all remaining 2018 Jeep Wrangler JLs. With over $3,000 off MSRP, closeout price $35,247 with a Don Miller deal. The Wrangler Unlimited Sport with advanced multi-stage front airbags, electronic roll mitigation, power heated mirrors. Get $500 Freedom Day bonus cash. The spring sales event on now at Don Miller, Madison and Dane County's Jeep headquarters.
Don Miller. Get the refrigerator you've always wanted now at the Brothers Maine Big Deal Refrigerator Sale. You'll save big on every Samsung refrigerator in the store, like the coolest French door black stainless and smart refrigerators that do it all. You'll get more with our risk-free 30-day price and satisfaction guarantee, because we want you to be 100% confident with your refrigerator. That's how we do it at the Moore store. It's the Big Deal Refrigerator Sale, with more selection, more savings, and more big confidence, only at the Brothers Maine, your local store for more since 1938.
A Savvy Senior's tips to avoid Medicare phone scams, Monday at 10.
Our special pre-election conversation with Madison Mayor Paul Soglin is underway here on For the Record. So why are your food policies getting as much pushback as they are?
I'm not sure, but let's just do a bit of history. 8 years ago, the food discussion was solely focused on a public market downtown with very expensive prices oriented towards the business community and tourists. We shifted the discussion. Two ways we shifted it. First, we started a larger discussion about food and nutrition, and look at the things that we've accomplished. We had two areas that were deficient and didn't have groceries. We had a program. We didn't know when the money would be needed, but I set it up, and sure enough, we funded Luna's out at Allied Drive, and it's operational. Just talked to the family the other day and was told that things are going very well. And then we funded the Willie Street North, replacing Pierce's. So we're tackling the places of food insecurity. Secondly, we were looking at what's going on in the school district. Our kids were not getting lunches during the summer. And I brought that proposal to the school district. Now we've got free reduced lunches during the summer, and in some areas we've even got meals in the evenings. Then there's just the larger question about eating right. We've got our Double Down program that assists families on SNAP, the old food stamps. It stretches their dollars further on fresh, healthy foods at many of the markets here in the city of Madison. Then we changed the concept of the public market. The public market, first of all, is going to be a place for providing healthy, nutritious food that's affordable. And let's point out, the smallest margins in any retail business is selling fresh food. This is a real challenge. That's our first goal. Secondly, it's an opportunity to encourage and support entrepreneurship, particularly in communities of color. Therefore, we launched our Market Ready program. We've now got about 50 vendors ready to go in the public market. 2/3 of them are from communities of color, and they've gone through the additional work they need to become a vendor in the market and to make sure they're successful, because we don't want them to invest their funds and not succeed. The other thing we've done is we've looked at the larger concept. Hey, this is Wisconsin. This is Dane County. We are one of the richest agricultural communities in the world. Our whole original economy was built on farming and food and beverage. And so whether we're talking in terms of the regional economic entity, MadRep, where our principal focus is food and beverages, or we're talking about local aggregation. We're looking at how we can bring fresh food in. Look, I'll pose it this way. Why should the Chicago Public Schools be purchasing freeze-dried food from Mississippi when they could get fresh food trucked, aggregated, shipped down to Chicago from Madison and Dane County?
As you know, this deserves a whole half hour, but just in terms of a campaign and asking for votes, in terms of public safety, Paul, what are the most important issues we need to deal with right now?
Nationally, the biggest issue was the murders involving young African-American men, both as the assailants and the victims. And so I got our cities early on engaged with something called Cities United, which was funded by the Casey Foundation. Our work then led to President Obama and his initiative, My Brother's Keeper. So let's just look at the data and what happened here in Madison. In the 14, 15 months leading up to August of 2017, we had 14 such homicides, 14 of them. It was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare for the families involved, for the young people involved, for our entire community. I went to work in collaboration with city staff, county staff,
2 minutes left.
the Focused Interruption Coalition, and now, since August of 2017, we've had 4 such homicides. We've not had a homicide in the city since October. I was hired to do a job, and I won't be satisfied on all these fronts: housing, transportation, health, particularly health care and insurance, until we've closed all the gaps, all the disparities. But I think I've done a really good job, and I'd like to continue for 4 more years.
Yeah, but no, just tensions remain, though. I mean, public safety tensions remain. You still have to do more to diffuse those.
Well,
we still have to do more.
One of the things that we need to do is have more conversations between the community and the police department. I think that's really critical. The department started it on the north side. Now, you know, we have the annual neighborhood conferences, and they've been very successful. We've done them on land use, we've done them on the environment, we've done them on transportation. We've been doing them for 20, 30 years. We have never done one on law enforcement, the community, and police. If I'm reelected, that will be our subject next fall.
I'm sorry I prompted your closing speech too early, but I wanted to get in that last bit. Paul Soglin, thanks very much. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this.